Vic Mullen, grumpy old Scotsman. How you all doing? So, you might hear some banging noises. You can probably see the curtain. Now that window's closed, but there's still air getting in. We're currently getting hammered by Storm Amy. Something like 60 mile an hour winds to 80 or 90 mile an hour gusts, and there's fences and sheds being ripped up in people's back doors, but the houses themselves are going to be fine. Just the gardens are going to be trashed, essentially. So, when is it apparent that a society is now entering social degradation, which is one of the first steps to basically a civil war? Civil wars don't just happen like that. If you look at the history of modern civil wars, like the Syrian civil war, the civil wars that have happened in Africa, and there's a lot of them happening in Africa right now, the civil wars that have happened in various places. And if you even go back in history to the civil war that happened in the United States, the civil war that happened down south in England, even in Europe, the civil war that happened in Yugoslavia that led to the breakup of Yugoslavia as a nation, and it turned into separate nations. The lead in to the civil war usually involves two groups of people, sometimes three, sometimes four, but normally two groups of people. You get the quiet group on one side, and you get the radical idiot group on the other. I think we all know who the radical idiot group is these days. But what generally tends to happen is social degradation sets in. And one side, usually the radical side, starts to think that it's fine to celebrate public deaths of the opposite group. We've seen it with Charlie Kirk. We've seen it all over the place with Charlie Kirk. I've had to unfriend and essentially block about 24 people on Facebook who I thought were level-headed folks until Charlie Kirk's death was actually announced, and they started celebrating it. It was like, oh, he was a Nazi. Oh, he was a fascist. I'm glad he's dead. Yeah, well, fortunately for normal, everyday human beings, we decided to contact where you work and then ask your boss, hey, is that the kind of person, not me personally, but a lot of other people did, hey, is this the kind of person you want working at your company? Hundreds of radicalised far leftists lost their jobs over celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, and I've seen it all over Facebook as well before I started going on a blocking and banning spree. But we've seen it with Charlie Kirk, and now we're seeing it here in the UK. We are. For the people that don't know this, if you're watching this in the United States, yesterday a radical Islamist got in a car, drove up to a synagogue, trying to run people over who were going into the synagogue, got out of his car and started going after Jewish people trying to celebrate Yom Kippur with a knife, trying to slit their throats. The police showed up and shot said Islamic terrorist dead. Now, the interesting thing about this is the background that's going on here. If I just head in here and we go up to the top here, let's go in here and let's go to the window capture, which is there. Yeah, here we are at the top. This is his name, the former Islamic terrorist, Jihad. That was his first name. He actually called himself Jihad. Jihad al-Shami rammed a car into pedestrians outside Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester on October 2nd, 2025, during Yom Kippur services, then stabbed victims, killing Adrian Daulby and Melvin Cravitz while injuring 3 others. Greater Manchester Police shot and killed al-Shami at the scene, but Chief Constable Sir Stephen Watson disclosed that officers unintentionally shot 1 deceased victim and 1 injured survivor who were behind the synagogue door. 3 suspects remain in custody for assisting the plot, as Prime Minister Keir Starmer pledges increased security for Britain's Jewish community following a surge in anti-Semitic incidents. And the anti-Semitic incidents are entirely Labour's fault, because Labour inherently is an anti-Semitic party. The whole Jeremy Corbyn thing, Jeremy Corbyn was raked over the coals for not doing enough to stamp out anti-Semitism within his own party. And Keir Starmer is now suffering the same problem. The problem that Keir Starmer has is he declared Palestine as a state. And what did Hamas say the day after? It was all over certain segments of the news. Hamas, the terrorist organisation that's actually running Palestine as the government, essentially said to all jihadists out there, not people actually called jihadists, but all actual jihadists out there, to bring the fight to the Europeans. Run them over with cars, stab them with knives, shoot them with guns. This is what Hamas said one day after Keir Starmer bent the knee and said, "Oh, I'm going to recognise Palestine as a state because I have no backbone." One day later, Hamas released that statement. And what did Jihad al-Shami do? He ran them over with a car. He stabbed them with a knife. Guns aren't freely available in the UK, so he couldn't get to that part. But he was shot with a gun from the police. And this kind of thing, you would think, dear viewer, being a level-headed human being, you would think you would react to this with shock. How could another human being find it in their heart to run over other human beings with a car and stab them with a knife? You would think that, but unfortunately the far left animals, because that's what they are, they're not people, they're animals. The far left radicalised animals started celebrating. Yeah, I'm not going to bother showing the video, you can find it freely amongst yourselves, but there was several pro-Palestinian marches that happened in train stations for some strange apparent reason, and they were cheering. They were cheering about the Jewish people that were killed at the synagogue. Cheering. Every single one of these animals, because that's what they are, they're not people, they're animals, should be treated as animals. The police should run up to them, bring out their truncheons, beat them senseless, and then drag them into the nearest police station, throw them into a jail cell, lock them up, and throw away the key. Treat them as animals because they're acting as animals. And again, it's the radicalised far left. The far left here have got the same lobotomised attitude to actual decent human morals. The same problem here that happened over in the United States, or that's happening over in the United States. And at the same time all this is going on, pro-Palestine marches went ahead as normal, and we can show you some of them here. Here we go. Breaking: pro-Palestinian Islamists are outside Keir Starmer's home, that's number 10 Downing Street, threatening him and his family. What exactly are they protesting? Starmer recognised a Palestinian state last week and is actively pushing for a ceasefire. Here we are.
And I've just gone around the corner so that I can hear you, because the loud noise is coming out of the protest that's just taking place outside of number 10 Downing Street. It's pretty deafening. It's mostly pro-Palestine protesters that are there.
No, they're not pro-Palestine protesters. They are pro-Palestine animals. They are pro-Palestine terrorist supporters. Get it right.
Right now, it is getting a bit violent, Ian. I've just seen 3 territorial squad police vans filled with officers just go onto Whitehall.
So let's flick over to another one. Wow. I think somebody's shed just got ripped up again. Let's head over to this one here. Where are we going? We're going to this one. From a different angle this time. So, what are they protesting now? What are they protesting now? They got their way with Keir Starmer basically recognising a Palestinian state, therefore recognising the Hamas terrorist organisation, which led to Hamas releasing a broadcast saying, "Kill all the infidels," essentially. And this is why this has now happened in a Jewish synagogue. Those Jewish people that were killed because of this Islamic terrorist, their blood is on the hands of Keir Starmer. Their blood is also on the hands of every single radicalised animal, radicalised terrorist sympathiser that is currently out there celebrating the death of these Jewish people. The whole lot of them should be rounded up, locked up, and the key thrown away. And any of these Islamic terrorists who are leading these marches should be immediately deported. No questions asked. Get on a plane, get to and don't come back. You want to bring your Sharia law here, which a lot of them actually do. Fine, go back to a country that's actually got Sharia law in it, instead of bringing it here to this country. This is why I have no time anymore, just no time at all, for any of these far-left lobotomised animals, because that's what they are. They're animals. Ask yourself one question. Would these kinds of marches have happened in 1980 under Margaret Thatcher? For that matter, would these kind of marches have happened during the late 90s under Tony Blair? I can answer that question. No. Because both Blair and Thatcher would have sent the police out in full riot squad gear with truncheons, beat the hell out of them, kettle them into a corner, throw them in a meat wagon, and then throw them in jail. That's exactly what should happen to these pro-Palestinian protesters that are currently on the streets in London. And that's exactly what should happen to the pro-Palestinian protesters that were actively cheering and celebrating the deaths of these Jewish people in front of the synagogue as they were attacked during Yom Kippur. This is the first signs of social degradation. When one radicalised side, in this case the lobotomised terrorist supporting left, decide to openly cheer and openly applaud the deaths, the murders of other people in their own country. We are now on the path to civil war. We're now on the path. Because if this is allowed to continue, if the radicalised left is allowed to get away with what they're doing, if the radicalised left are allowed to get away with fighting the police and the police are not doing anything to stop these protests, if the radicalised left are allowed to cheer and applaud deaths of people or religious people that they don't agree with, where's it going to end? Where's it going to end? It ends in a civil war. That's where it ends. That's exactly where it ends. It's what happened on the run-up to the breakup of Yugoslavia. It's what happened with the religious tensions that went on in Syria. Every single major civil war that's happened in modern times, it's always the radicalised side cheering deaths on the opposition side openly that signifies the degradation of society. And when society degrades so far that it's no longer able to be fixed, that it's no longer able to be righted by a government which, quite frankly, right now under Keir Starmer is completely powerless to do anything about it, then we're headed for a civil war. It may not be a big one. It may just be a couple of major clashes in the middle of major cities like Birmingham, Manchester or London, but I can tell you now, it won't be the radical left that come out alive. It won't, because the radical left can only scream and shout and diagnose you. You're racist, you're Islamophobic, you're transphobic, you're anti-LGBTQ. When it gets to a full fight, the right will win. Any section of the right wing, they will win. Simple as that. Simple as that. The fact that Keir Starmer, along with the Home Secretary, are unable to stop this. They're even unable to stop the planned pro-Palestine protests that are going to happen tomorrow, that means the government's completely powerless to actually do anything to protect the Jewish citizens living in the UK. I'm not even going to touch on the whole Palestinian-Israel war, because that's happening over there. The British Jewish are over here, and there's a major difference. It is up to the government, whatever government is in power, and it is up to the Home Secretary, whoever the Home Secretary is. It is their job, and they are paid to protect the citizens of the country that they are working in. In this case, the United Kingdom, in this case, the British Jews. If they're unable to even deport an Islamic terrorist whose first name was jihad, for f***'s sake, then what's the point in having any of this government currently in power? There's no point. Absolutely no point. If they're unable to actually see something like this happen, well, look at this Muslim. His first name is actually Jihad. Don't you think we should keep an eye on him? Don't you think maybe we should deport him just to be safe? No, it's an innocent first name. This is what the Home Secretary said, who also happens to be Muslim. Colour me shocked. But she also happens to be Muslim. Oh, Jihad is a common name. No, it's not. No, it's not. Run it under any AI system, whether it be Grok, whether it be ChatGPT, and ask them how common is the first name Jihad. And you will be shocked at how very, very low the percentage of people in the world that have that name. Oh, it's a common name. The United States, along with the United Kingdom, more so the United Kingdom, no, in fact, not more so the United Kingdom, I think we're equal now, to be honest. I think we're equal, yeah, because our crazed lunatic left is now caught up with the crazed lunatic left over in the United States. Both of our countries are on the track to the start of a civil war. There's one difference, though. There's one major difference. The US has Donald Trump, who's not even halfway through his term yet. And for all intents and purposes, with the government shutdown that's happening over there, it gives Donald Trump a chance to gut out the government. There is clampdowns against the far left happening in the United States. ICE and the National Guard, for I think the National Guard, being sent into places like Portland. The trouble with the United Kingdom is we don't have a Donald Trump. The closest we've got to a Donald Trump is Nigel Farage. But the problem is he's only got 5 MPs in Parliament up against a 145-seat majority of the Labour Party, and the Labour Party's only through their first year of a 4 or 5 year term. Right now, we're in the same position that the United States was in during Biden's first year as Prime Minister. That's the position we are now in. We're lagging behind the US slightly. We're lagging behind. But the problem with the United Kingdom is there's so much pent-up anger about the illegal migrant boat crossings, about the rape of not hundreds, of tens of thousands of British white children because of Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. There's so much pent-up anger about this government and about what the far left are doing that I think we are very, very close to something going snap and a war breaks out. I think we're very close to it now. Very close. Anyway, my thoughts goes out to all the families affected at the October 2nd terrorist synagogue attack that happened yesterday. No religious going person, whether they be Jewish, whether they be Catholic, whether they be Church of England, Church of Scotland, whether they be Hindu, whether they be Islam, should be scared to go out to their local place of worship. And we are now at the point where one certain segment, one certain religious group are now scared to go out to their own place of worship. And that's the Jews. That's the Jews. And before anyone starts with, oh, what about the genocide, Vic? It's not a genocide. It's not. It's not. And before you all go nuts, what is a genocide? Right, we're talking about the Israeli-Gaza war that's going on here. Remember that Hamas actually started this war by breaching the accords on October the 7th, which is something that Hamas is very, very good at. Hamas is very good at breaching peace agreements with the Israelis. But the whole point of a civil war is to essentially wipe out a population. Or not a civil war, a genocide, sorry. It's to wipe out a population. Wipe out a population either based on ethnicity or either based on religion. Now, on October 7th, during the attack that happened when Hamas jumped over the barrier and started raping, killing and slaughtering men, women and children that none of you far-left animals out there seem to care about because you're all anti-Semitic Jewish haters and you belong in the same category as Adolf Hitler, quite frankly, but since you ignore all that part, oh no, Hamas didn't do anything wrong. They were subjugated. F*** you, seriously, animals, every single one of you. Israel were well within their right on October the 9th, the day after. If they wanted to, they could have carpet bombed Gaza and the West Bank. Just like that. Wiping out every single building, every single underground tunnel, every single hiding place for Hamas. They could have wiped out and levelled those two areas within 24 hours. They've got the manpower, they've got the technical knowledge, they've got the army, they've got the air force, and they even have nukes. Israel held back. They didn't have to, but they did. If it was a genocide, Israel would have ended the war just like that. It's not a genocide. It's not. Also, why are none of you crazed left terrorist supporting lunatics out there criticising Egypt? Egypt shares a border with Israel. When the Gazans fled south, what did Egypt do? They closed their border. They did not let any Palestinian refugees in for 2 months after the war kicked off. And why did Egypt not let any in? Their own foreign minister said it. We don't want to let terrorists into our nation. Period. Why did Jordan not let any in for the first month and a half? Same reason. They didn't want to let any terrorists into their nation. Even the Middle East sees Palestine and Hamas for what they are. But again, none of the leftists out there criticise Egypt for closing their border. None of the leftists out there criticise Jordan for closing their border. None of the leftists out there criticise Turkey for closing their border. Why? Because those three countries are not Jewish. Am I saying that most of the far left radicals out there are anti-Jewish? Yes, I am. Because they are. It's a fact. They are. They are. None of them criticised any of the Middle Eastern bloc countries for blocking refugees. None of them. None of them even thought of criticising Egypt. None of them even thought about the United Arab Emirates blocking Palestinian refugees. None of them even mentioned it. None of them. But let's protest against Keir Starmer, even though Keir Starmer bent the knee and decided to declare Palestine as a nation and a state, which also means essentially giving the nod to Hamas, a terrorist organisation, as the sole government of said place, and opening a door up for Hamas to then release a statement saying, go kill the infidels, which is exactly what happened yesterday in Manchester. Yeah. The quiet majority of British people out there that is sitting back and shaking their heads at the utter lunacy of the far left, that quiet majority will break. They will eventually snap. And when they do, you've got a civil war in your hands. You do. And if it happens during the term of this Labour Party will not be able to stop it. They're gutless, they're powerless, and they're spineless to do anything in the face of being called, "Oh, you're Islamophobic, by the far left. They're powerless, completely and utterly powerless. So now, we've got Jewish people being stabbed to death on the streets. And far left terrorist sympathising animals celebrating it publicly on the streets. Now you know why I distance myself from anything that's called modern left, even though I'm an old school socialist. I don't recognise the left anymore. I don't recognise anything to do with it. They're all f***ing insane. All of them. All insane. Anyway, that's it from me, folks. Yeah, have a good one.